In the regular city, my version of good emotions is either the release from physical intimacy, that's my polite way of putting it, okay? Release from physical intimacy, right? So, maybe my day, I'm seeing different people and, they're coming by and it's really nice. And we're having nice experience. I'm getting some kind of a release from that. Then what happens, maybe I have a main person who I'm seeing and we go grab a beautiful dinner. Then I have my kids and then I have my social media where I'm having fun on there. And then I have different parties that I'm doing. I'm getting invited to the best parties. And, I'm doing my thing on social media. I'm doing the parties. I'm seeing different people. I have different friends. Maybe going to see a movie or something. So it's kind of like a dopamine fest that you're getting from the feeling of status, okay? Now that's a lot better of a loop to be in than somebody who is in victimhood, trash talking, complaining, poverty, not able to get in anywhere. And the main problem that they lack self-reliance. They're not able to just do the basic thing of just meeting somebody cool or getting in the best places, and they're basically living in mediocrity and poverty. Like, you should be at the best restaurants. You should be seeing the best people. You should be having the coolest friends. Like, you should see somebody who you want to make friends with on TV and then go befriend them. That's normal, by the way. Like, one of the first things that my son Dylan, he has his favorite YouTuber for a long time was this guy called Jelly. So I made sure to get Jelly, who's the fourth top biggest YouTuber, I think, could be wrong. I got him to send a happy birthday message to Dylan just so that Dylan, my son, could see, no, I'm going to be friends with Jelly. I'm not just going to watch Jelly on TV. He's going to be my buddy, right? So I found out if I had mutual friends. I did. I had a hookup and I went and did that. So it's important to actually become friends with even the people that you see on social media, or even to come to events like this and just see them in real life, not because you need their approval, but to show your brain that that's for you. It's to show your brain that that's not off limits. And what I found, and this is a big thing, okay? What I found was whenever I would hit a next level, where maybe I would either, hook up with somebody that was more attractive than I'm used to, or I'd go to a better party, like a really, really high-end party, or, I would do, even for me when I'm younger, going to a really high-end restaurant, or, buying diamonds or buying high-end clothing or things like that. What was weird was I always felt like that's not for me. Does anybody here ever feel that whole that's not for me feeling? Like, if I were to be wearing a $100,000 watch and I put it on your wrist, would you start like shaking and it feels weird? That's what it feels like. Say that you've never dated anyone really attractive, you go home with them. It's like, the pleasure of it is kind of like one thing. It's like, but it's not really like as fun as it would sound like. If anything, you're almost just like, oh, like the kid from American Pie, right? Nadia. You're just like, you're just like, this isn't real. And then you go home and you can't sleep. You're like, that was crazy. That's like I was in some weird adult website. Like, that was crazy. Like, your brain is freaking out. Your brain's tweaking because you did something that you're not used to. Could even be if you've been watching me on social media and you come to this event today and you meet me, or Jeff, you might find that when you go home tonight, you can't even sleep. You're like, whoa, this is a whole other way of seeing things. And it's like your brain is frying. And so what I experienced was me wanting to break through the whole that's not for me thing. It's not that you're going to be happier when you date better people or have more money or things like that. Really, happiness comes down to things like trauma release, meditation, pumping your own state, your perspective, gratitude. That's really where happiness comes from. Believe it or not, I know you're like, that doesn't sound cool. I want the celebrity party, right? You're thinking, that doesn't sound cool at all, right? No, because I already know from all my celebrity clients, many of them are freaking miserable. Happiness comes from gratitude, being present in the moment, meditation, trauma release, pumping your own state, what you focus on, spending time with loved ones, being around cool people, doing hobbies, having a purpose. That's happiness. But what you're going to see is that you still want to do these things because you want to prove to your brain it's not a that's not for me thing. No, it is for you, and there's nothing off limits. Now, what's going to happen as you do this is you're kind of in this dopamine matrix. I'm going to call it the dopamine matrix. Can you guys say that word after me? Dopamine matrix, right? So we get something called a winner effect. Whenever we actually feel like we're higher status, it changes our brain's neurochemistry. You can look this up. There's a guy called Robert Sapolsky. We basically get this feeling of being in state or a winner effect when things are going well. That's why if you go to a bar club, what's going to happen is, maybe you get a little success going, right? And it's like you become a Zen monk. You ever feel like that? Like you have some really good success at a bar or club, everybody's liking you, and all of a sudden it's like you're completely present, your body feels healthy. I've had it once. I'm not making a claim about this. I'm not giving medical advice, nothing like that. But I had an experience once where I had food poisoning. I was with my ex-girlfriend CJ, and we're sitting on the airplane, and literally I ate bad food, and I'm twitching and shaking like this. There's sweat pouring out of me, and I couldn't even sleep that night. And she was like, babe, how are you going to ever, do this seminar? It was this huge seminar in New York, so I'm not going to skip it. A lot of people would have showed up. And so I walk from the back, twitching and sweating, going, well, this will be an interesting experience. And as everybody cheers for me, I get to the front, completely gone. Sweat's gone, health issues gone. the crowd carried me by giving me those props, and what that did was it actually allowed me I mean, look, I don't know what happened. I don't want to make a medical claim. I'm just saying that was my analogy of an experience, is what I'm saying, okay? So there's something to that, and Robert Sapolsky studied this about how it changes hormones. Again, these are his studies, not mine. He's from Stanford, if I got that right. Hormones, immune system, he says, not me. It's just a study that I read. You got to be careful on that, because on the platforms, if you make a claim, they can get upset about that. So it's a study that I read. You go look that up yourself. Neurochemistry in the brain. All these things change about you. How do you know this is probably true? Because when you go out to a bar club, you have a great night, you can feel the difference in your body immediately. So even me doing public speaking in many ways, when I'm up here and I'm able to speak improvisationally, I'm out of my head, it's many of you that are feeding me that energy. Right? When you see me doing this, my voice opens up. It's booming over the crowd. You're feeding me energy. That's me getting that from you. But my art and science over the years, because you might have noticed I've also gone through some bad reputational issues. You might have seen a little bit of that here or there, like international issues, like 2014 and stuff, right? You might have seen that. And so a lot of what it is that I dream blog, right? So a lot of what I've seen, okay? A lot of what I've seen is, where I've lost that. And the art and science is learning how to ground that feeling of a winner effect even when you're not getting that feedback. And that's what the program Blueprint Decoded, that whole thing was all about that, as well as many other videos that I put out. I teach in mentoring, I teach in boot camp. I even work with celebrity clients who go through scandals now, and that's one of the things that I have to teach them when they go through a scandal, is not to be impacted or affected and then try to overcorrect and panic. You know, like when you're meeting someone you're intimidated by and you overqualify yourself and you overcorrect? People do that in scandals as well. So I coach people through that, as well as the social media components. Now, that being said, understand that a lot of that matrix is like a dopamine matrix. So I was able to kind of beat that level, at least to some extent. Some people have done more, but compared to what I ever would have expected, getting all the dopamine of winning, I was able to kind of get to that point, okay? It's a good feeling when you wake up, you walk down the street, your phone is loaded with people, hitting you up and want to come and hang out and want to be intimate with you, and you got fans on the street, and you're doing multi-million-dollar product launches, and you're doing parties, right? You're going to the best place. It's a great feeling, but it's still a trap. You remember in Star Wars, it's a trap. You remember that? You remember Star Wars, that big guy with the big brown head? What did he say? What did he say? What did Admiral Akbar say? What did he say? It's a trap. It's a trap. Say that with me. It's a trap. Louder. Say it. Say it again. Say it again. 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 One last time. It's a trap. It honestly is. The dopamine is a trap. So what I found was, you know how when you read books like Eckhart Tolle, and there's almost this sort of infusion of presence in it, and like just looking at Eckhart Tolle, or maybe you read the Bible, maybe you read the Tao Te Ching, 3 great books. Bible's my favorite, second favorite be Tao Te Ching, third favorite Eckhart Tolle, but Eckhart Tolle helps to make sense of those first 2 books. And so when you read those, what you find is you get this present feeling from it. You know when you go in nature, you might get a very present feeling. You know when you meditate, you get a present feeling? That's like a buzz, but it's a bit of a different buzz that you get from just winning, isn't it? You notice that? You ever experience it? You guys are like, I don't know, I got to still get a win first. I got to learn to meditate first, okay? But you know what I'm saying, right? It's a different buzz. One is a rush of dopamine, kind of like what a cokehead would have, but stable and sober. The other is like the peace of your creator within you, the peace of heaven while alive on earth. And so what happens is that if you go out into nature enough, and the main key is I think you got to drive. I honestly, I just think you got to drive. You can go from nature to nature by plane. Do it if that's your best option. I'll still fly sometimes for sure. It's convenient. Sometimes if I'm stuck on time and I want to go to nature, I do that. But I actually spent about 270 days a year for 2 years now in nature, and probably less than 100 days a year in cities the past 2 years. So I literally am just a nature country bumpkin now. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my first experience when I realized what was happening. So I went up to Montana by car. I drove from LA to Montana. I was up in Montana. We were in private tours of Yellowstone National Park, these over snow vehicles. We were out there. We then went up to Lamar Valley, which is completely stunning. That drive to Lamar Valley was life-changing. It's like heaven on earth. Did that in the winter. Drove back down to Jackson Hole. I think I might even want to move there. Ski Jackson Hole was totally beautiful. And then was driving back down to Salt Lake City. We're out in nature for maybe a couple weeks. On my way back, as I'm in Salt Lake City, I'm in and again, perfect example. Hear this noise? You don't hear, that's a police siren if you're hearing it at home. You don't hear that when you're out there very often, okay? So after being out there, I get into Salt Lake, which is a great city, by the way. It has Alton, Snowbird, these incredible ski resorts around it, Brighton, Solitude, Park City, Deer Valley. I mean, it's amazing. And I'm pulling into Salt Lake, which is a beautiful, beautiful town, by the way. Beautiful city. And I get there, and I go to this late-night hamburger place, and, this guy comes up, he's like, yo, get your name on the list. And I'm like, whoa, what's wrong with you? Now, normally, I'm kind of a clown. I clown right back. I don't care. And I've sort of rationalized that, but I'm just seeing like, there's a lot of homelessness. It's very sad. There's a lot of people that are coming from very frenetic, negative energy. There's a lot of heaviness. And I'm like, what am I doing here? This place sucks. Like, what's wrong? Why are you here? Why are you screaming? Why are you filled with all this garbage and trash? What kind of sick satanic system are we stuck in? And I saw it for the first time, and I didn't connect to the city anymore. And I live in a beautiful place in LA with a beautiful view, and you wouldn't feel bad for me. But even now, with me being in LA, up in the Hollywood Hills, there's nature all around, great view, I still feel stuck. I basically want to spend the rest of my life, I skied almost every beautiful major resort this year skiing, although I popped my ACL doing it, but I want to be out skiing. I'm probably going to get into things like skydiving. There's actually one place in Colorado where you can bring kids skydiving. Probably going to bring my son skydiving. It'll be a tandem, don't panic. Yeah, I'm bringing my sons out with me here in Texas too. They're going to be here Thursday. So, yeah, I had my sons hiking up in mountains, hiking out with like, coyotes and rattlesnakes around, bears around, because I saw that we're entering into this culture of safetyism to where everybody's so scared, and I've got to show them how to conquer their fear in a safe manner. I've got experts around, right? Guys like Sid. Sid wrestles alligators and stuff, so he's good to go. I'll show you the videos later. I'm not even kidding. Sid will just be like, oh, I'm wrestling an alligator today. He does wingsuiting, all that kind of stuff. So from that standpoint, I realized there's a better matrix to be in, which is a matrix of what you call presence, present energy. And realizing that you can actually break out of this dopamine matrix. So the first matrix is the matrix of derp, matrix of victim, matrix of trash talk, matrix of poop eating, matrix of complete utter garbage where you're just a battery in the system. So you break out of that matrix, you get out of that, and then you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, now I'm winning, now I'm rich, now I'm getting social success, now I've actually gone to the best places, I'm winning. It's great to do that, to show yourself that that's for you. It's not for you, it's for you. But the next level is realizing the whole friggin' thing is sick. Like, yes, go into cities if you want to improve your dating life. Go to cities if you want to, have business meetings. Go into cities if you want to go do a seminar or something. But I think the best thing to do is build some kind of online business that allows you to get out of the city and live in nature. Now, here's what you're going to see. At first, when you go there, you don't even have a palate for it. When I used to go in nature during all this, all that I'd be doing was checking my social media, looking forward to getting to the next party, trying to hit back the people I'm trying to date. I was just doing that all the time. But I realized over time, I'm like, wait a minute, no, it's more beautiful out here, but like the same poop eater concept where you're being energized from talking trash and being a victim and being broke and just being a freaking loser, and that you basically love that, which they love it because they're like drug addicts. There's another level of that. Okay, there's also people that have been pushed down. I'm trying to break that, but I'm just making the point there's a drug addiction component there too. I know because I'll help people and then they still keep going back to the derp. But at the same time, even winning is another form of drug addiction. And what I'm going to even explain to you is that even winning to some extent, you're still a slave in many, many ways to the real people that are pulling the strings, which by the way, they're slaves to Satan. We'll get in that later. Okay, so basically I'm just kidding. So, hey, we're in Texas. There'll be a friendly audience to that. The people online, they'll have some comments to say, but we'll stick with that. So basically what you have, okay, I'll get into that in a minute. Okay, let's even look at this, for a minute. Let's imagine right now that you completely, utterly make it as a part of the establishment. Okay, many people who I coach are part of the establishment. So let's look at a simple interview as a basic level example of somebody who is mostly free to the establishment and their own boss. Mostly, not entirely, by the way, not for sure not. And then somebody who's establishment. So let's look at an example. We will talk about the interview between Joe Rogan and Sanjay Gupta. Did anybody here ever see that interview? No. Joe Rogan, Sanjay Gupta. Now, if you watch that basic interview, I don't care about the content. I don't know who's right or wrong. I'm not here to make a claim of who is right or wrong, although I clearly have my opinion. But I'm not going to make a claim on that, and I'm not an expert, okay? I'm allowed to have an opinion, but I'm not going to make a claim on who's right or wrong. I just purely want to talk about the way they carry themselves, their demeanor. Joe Rogan, who's mostly his own boss, he's just free, he's loose, he's saying what he wants, his mind's very open. And you look at Sanjay, and he's just parroting back the views of the establishment. He's basically been bought off. And I'm using Sanjay as an example because I actually really like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's got a good heart. I don't know for sure. I've never met him. But the vibe I get from Sanjay is a good guy that kind of just went down the rabbit hole of being a part of the establishment and kind of doesn't even really know what he got into. And so the establishment has programmed his mind. And what you're basically going to see is that every human being, to truly advance, you want to have access to the following things. Repeat these after me. First of all, your own will. Say that with me. Your own will. Second of all, your own discernment. Say that. Your own discernment. Third, access to flow. And then what this does, these three things, as you're kind of spinning a flywheel, makes you or puts you into a state of ongoing expansion. Say ongoing expansion. Okay, so if I were to get, say, a video or had him here, my firstborn son Tristan. I've got Vincent and Dylan coming here. They're 10 and 11, but my firstborn son Tristan is 3. Okay, so my older kids still have this to a decent extent. I've preserved it to the extent that I can, but my youngest son Tristan, he's a classic example. Because I have never showed anger in front of Tristan, I've never shown that. He's never seen me mad. Never in my life have my children seen me mad, even a single time, by the way. I've never traumatized them by being mad in front of them. I've never used them as a sponge for my anger. Wouldn't that have been nice? Well, they've never been exposed to that. Because I have traveled them around the country, because I have taken them all over the place, because I will bring my kids into seminars like this and have them come to the front of the crowd and actually speak in front of crowds while people cheer for them, and while I'm continually helping them to grow and applying a healthy amount of pressure, but not too much, and knowing and putting a foundation of unconditional love, my kids, they're very, very much connected to their natural state. And so you will notice by looking in their pupils that they are completely and totally in the zone. Now, as they get older, the ego forms and they'll become separated from God, but it's very much like they've brought that divine energy into the world. You're going to see this. And if I had my son Tristan here, he literally looks more high than if he took like 15 Molly pills. And he looks like this 24 hours a day. He's playing. His eyes are beaming with divine energy coming out of him like it's like two Care Bears shooting out of his pupils, playing. He's like a comedian. He laughs all day. He's playing. He's in a state of joy. Why? Let's think about that. A, he's allowed to exercise his own will. Later, I will help him to relate to society more, to harmonize with society. I'm not just going to let him run around like a crazy person his whole life. But why not preserve that and allow that lateral thinking and creativity and expansiveness to fully take root before you expose him all this crazy crap? So that's the first phase of, the kind of foundation there. The next, so that's, first of all, he's able to exercise his own will. And what you'll see him doing is running around the house, playing and expressing and doing his thing. You ever had it where you're at a bar club, and you're just having fun with everybody, and you're exercising your own will without thinking of how you'll be received, and it puts you in a flow state? You ever have that? Well, as a child, they live there because you're not living there all the time. It's this kind of interspersed experience. A child lives there. The next up is he's allowed to have his own discernment. So I'm always telling my kids, don't listen to what's in the media. I explain to them what the agenda is. I explain to them what the corporate media is. I show them that, yes, there's some good stuff in it. It's not all bad. You don't want to take away all the great reporting and things that people in the corporate media do to actually help. Many of them are trying to help, but many of them are not. And I show them that. And I also explain even things that they learn at school are not to be taken blindly. They have to think critically. And I do exercise with my kids where I try to trick them and see if they can catch me to be a little bit more cynical. Why is America crushing it for so long? Because we had a group of people that were a little bit cynical. That's not about being negative. That's not about not respecting people that do public service. I respect people that do public service, but it's also important that just like in a business, there has to be a little bit of skepticism there. It's okay to be skeptical of me. It's okay for me to be a little bit cynical about you. We don't need to just take everything blindly all the time. It's okay to realize that yes, people are good. People have the capacity for good, but they also could do crazy stuff, and you have to be looking out for the agenda. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to think critically. It's okay to think about where this person's coming from. Human nature, DNA, makes it to where we're a little bit selfish. Some people have cultivated their higher consciousness and they're givers and they're win-win and they know how to be collaborative. Others don't. And other people are possessed by basically the frickin' devil. And so for that reason, and they crave power and they go in positions of power. It's okay to question that. But people will literally say, no, you can't question anything and you should just be in the sick system, eat our garbage food, watch our garbage entertainment, take our garbage paradigms, be a victim. You are a victim. Basically addicting you to victimhood, addicting you to putting poison into your body, poisoning you both psychologically, spiritually, physically, in all aspects. It is a full spectrum attack from every which direction, and your job is to say no. Just say that word no. Say it with me. No. Okay, say no. 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 No. Okay, simple as that. Just say no. Anybody who tells you that you can't speak, are they your friend? No. Anybody who tells you that you can't think for yourself, are they your friend? No. Okay, but now, by the way, does that mean that you can't look to experts? Of course you can, right? Experts are there I'm an expert. I'm here to help you. That doesn't mean that every word out of my mouth is bad. It means, though, that you can consciously choose me as an expert and take that which suits you and discard that which does not and create something truly your own, as the great Bruce Lee would say in the book Jeet Kune Do. Okay, I think I got that right. So the basic idea being, okay, we want to create a both individually and collectively, a world of critical thinkers, people who understand things and aren't just pessimistic to feel superior and look up weird alternate narratives just to feel superior to the mainstream and have to be different, like some kind of a hipster with like a crappy bike and a crappy mustache. I'm not saying that. Oh, I like the mustache, but I'm not saying that. I'm probably one of them. But what I'm saying, though, so it's not about being alternative to be alternative, but it's about real critical thinking because we want to actually move up. So think about it this way. The first one is accessing your own will. The second is accessing your own discernment, which as you expand, you get better discernment. The last one is having an independent access to flow, the ability to access your present energy. Why? Because when you cannot access present energy without the help of drugs and alcohol, without the help of approval, without the help of weird foods, without the help of stimulus online, you are a slave. Okay, and we can get rid of the most disgusting, horrific versions of slavery, but human beings have always sought to exploit each other to gain energy off of each other. And everybody does that to an extent. It's okay to also look out for yourself, be selfish to an extent, largely even, but it has to be a win-win. Not a win-lose, but a win-win. Your job is to realize that anytime that you engage with an idea or a food or a person or a substance, you'll benefit and also get stuff taken away from you. And you're looking for that which adds more to you than takes away, but that you also add to them more than you take away. That's looking for a win-win. And so if you cannot access a flow state on your own, guess what winds up happening? You are now a slave, and people can enslave you. They can put you to sleep. They can get you to do things. How do we know this? Walk down the street. Look at the average state of consciousness of the average person. They are in a derp state. They're half asleep, highly compliant. They walk the path of least resistance. Their version of entertainment is not living life on the edge, going to nature, doing cool things, spending time with family. Their version of entertainment is taking the path of least resistance and being numb and going to sleep. End of the day, after another demoralizing day, the same stupid commute, same stupid everything, end of the day, smoke a blunt, have a drink, eat fast food, look at garbage TV, look at garbage entertainment, complain to your spouse, and go to bed. Do that again and again and again and have it on the weekend. It's not a way to live, and it's how most of us are living. What is real thriving? It is, like I said, the base of learning how to make money independently, learning how to meet the coolest people, do the coolest things, live the social life that you want, get the respect, money, power you want. Go get it. Don't feel like that's not for you. Make it for you. But it's also realizing that the system itself is yet another layer of a trap and getting outside of that, getting it to where you're energized from your connection to the earth, almost like how a Native American would be. I spent a lot of time in Navajo Nation this year. Totally beautiful. So crazy to me that they're getting rid of the things that let me know about Navajo Nation, like the Redskins, the Cleveland Indians, Squaw Valley by Lake Tahoe. That's what inspired me to go spend my money and time in Navajo Nation. And they're saying that's bad. I don't get it, but maybe I'm insensitive and there's something I don't understand. If I do that, I apologize. But honestly, I don't get it. Such a beautiful culture. Spend time in Navajo Nation this year. Get out there. Go to Navajo Nation. Learn about the Native American culture. Learn about different cultures. Be in the outside and connect to God. That is where the energy begins to go into you. And what's going to happen when you do that? Number one, you start gaining energy from motion itself. What is it that I'm doing here? If you actually watch me as a speaker, what I'm doing, and I can sit up here all day until 5 in the morning, and I can do this day in and day out, day after day after day after day, and all that you're going to see is I'm gaining energy from it. I will gain more energy as I'm up here. Why? Because what's happening is I'm in what's called a flywheel effect. I'm exercising my own will, I'm sharing my own discernment, I'm accessing flow independently, and therefore I'm in that upward spiral. I'm not as much as my son Tristan as a 2 or 3-year-old, but I'm kind of like that a little bit as well. That is how you get that flywheel going as your state of consciousness. And now what happens is most people are in what's called energy scarcity. Just say that bad word, energy scarcity. Say that with me.
Energy scarcity.
Say it again.
Energy scarcity.
Say it again.
Energy
Notice how without me carrying you, the second time you actually lowered the volume. That's called what?
Energy.
What happened there? That's called what?
Energy scarcity.
What is it again?
Energy.
Okay, allow yourself to go into a flow and feed from that energy. So that's where you get the energy and what I call endless motivation, okay? You ever see those videos I did on endless motivation? I might even do a product on that at some point. Endless motivation, okay? That's that area where you can outcompete anybody. You don't need Adderall. You don't need caffeine. You can, I'll do a little caffeine here or there, but you really don't need it. You don't need anything. You're feeding off the flywheel of exercising your own will, something you're truly passionate about, a direction that you truly believe in. You have entered into your own discernment, something you truly believe in, and you've accessed flow state independently. You are not a slave to the satanic entertainment system to make you numb as your version of a break. I bet you got a great question back there, so go ahead. Okay, what is it?
So I'm often in and out of that flow state, but sometimes, especially when you live alone, you'll fall back into the derp state. What are small daily practices?
Well, let me make a distinction.
Yeah.
I think there's the yin and the yang. And so you better, like, I love Russian banya. I love going to movies, even by myself, even if the movie's not that good. I like to take a day off to walk. I'll go to the Grove in LA, or I'll go to Universal City Walk in LA, or wherever. I used to go to the ArcLight. It's been closed because of lockdown to stay safe. But anyway, so basically, so I like going to a movie by myself, sitting quietly, eating a nice meal, or going on a hike by myself, or I do a lot of Russian banya. I'm addicted to Russian banya. I don't know if you guys have that here. It's like a 220-degree sauna. Just hop in, bro. Hop in right there. It's they got a cold plunge. You go back and forth. I've even got my own cold plunge at home. I've got my own infrared sauna at home, and I still go to Russian banya. And if you see me there, it is basically the opposite of what you see me like here. I shut it down, I relax, and I enjoy. That is a word called proactive recovery. Say that with me, proactive recovery.
Proactive recovery.
Say it again.
Proactive recovery.
One more time.
Proactive recovery.
Okay, so what that means is that you're actively shutting it down and in the beauty of that regenerative state. And what I do is I shut it down so hard that I get this weird kind of regenerating feeling. So I'll be a little bit burnt down, my body needs a little bit of time to refuel, and then I sit there and I just regenerate and I refuel and I bring that into my body. Let me tell you a couple other things that I do. Like, this is not medical advice. I'm not a scientist. I am not giving you advice. I'm just telling you something that I personally do, and I don't know what does what. I'm just telling you something that I personally do. I'm giving you no advice at all. That's just something that I personally do, okay? So I'm on this really great run of not getting sick for a decade. And one thing that I personally do that is not a double-blind study, it is not FDA, it's just something that I do that I think is kind of cool. It's not even to stop myself from getting sick. It's just for a hobby, okay? Here's a hobby that I do. Here's a hobby. It's not because of that. It's just a hobby that I do. Is if I feel that I'm getting a little bit run down, I think a lot of people, they spend 4 or 5 days kind of sitting around, sweating and coughing and all that kind of stuff. What I do is I feel it coming. How do I know it's coming? I can feel the slightest little tingle in my teeth. I feel like it's like very subtle. You have to have body awareness. I also notice that all these like really expansive and cool thoughts that my brain normally generates kind of get tamped down. I feel like I've lost my superpowers a bit. I'm kind of just like kind of derping. Like I almost feel like I want to derp or something. I'm just chilling. Then what I notice is that I can feel like a slight little bit of sweat kind of like tingling on my back, but like the sweat doesn't come out, but I almost feel like there's like microscopic beads of sweat like on my forearms, like in my back. Like I can feel like a slight tingle, okay? So between the fact that like, my thoughts are slowing down a little bit and I can feel a little in the teeth and a little there, I'm like, oh, who's in there? Who's in there? Hey buddy, are you in there? Who's in there? Well, guess where I'm taking you? To the banya, and I'm gonna cook you. And then I'm gonna freeze you like Wim Hof. And then I go there, and I'm doing that on the front end. I'm not doing that like, because I haven't been sick. If I was in the throes of illness, I would not go near the banya. I think it would mess you up. But I just go there before, and then what I do is I lie around for about 2 days, and I just stare at the wall. I act as if I was already messed up. I also go get a lot of sunlight, feet in the dirt, shirt off, get a lot of like really clean, just really clean foods in, lower my stress. And it's so funny because my staff's never seen me sick and they've never seen me tired. And I always say, hey, leave me alone. I think I'm getting sick. And then they go, you don't get sick, you're Owen. That's impossible. Even the day I had food poisoning, I couldn't, right? And I go, no. That's because I have a process. And so what I do is I go do that process and I say, leave me alone. I don't want to hear about, the problem we're having here and the problem we're having there and this thing and this thing. Not today. And I take about 2 or 3 days to myself and I just derp and I go to the banya and I go out in the sun and I relax. And then what I notice what happens is right about, don't feel shame, you're good. But what winds up happening, you're here to be part of my group and I appreciate it. So what winds up happening is I'll sit there in this kind of derp state for about 2 or 3 days. And then what happens is, I'll notice around the end of the second day, I start surging with energy. And it's like caffeine times 50. Like, I get so much energy that my hands start shaking. I'm loaded with energy. And what I've had to train myself to do, because as soon as I get the energy back, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go do something. But then what I've got to train myself to do is like let it accumulate a little bit more, right? It's like just let it build up a little bit more and a little bit more. It's almost like you've been hooking up with your girlfriend all day, and like, maybe like, every like hour you're kind of hooking up again, right? Like, but if you just get like another half hour, you can have that refraction period and you get a little more gas in the tank. So I just give myself a little more refraction period. And then what winds up happening is the energy comes back, I'm good to go, and then I'm back on the grind. So that's the idea of the yin and the yang. Most of us live where? The gray zone. Say that after me. The gray zone. Say it again.
The gray zone.
Say it again. Wow, we actually get the energy. Great. So in that gray zone, what I notice is that we're trying to relax. but we're still looking at our text message. Maybe we're relaxing, we're watching some like Game of Thrones. I love Game of Thrones, but you know what the problem is? It's hella violent and it's hella stressful. You know, it's like the best show ever, so violent. You know, maybe we're even playing a video game where we're getting stressed. The key here is to lower the cortisol down. Let the body catch up on what it needs to do. It's the yin and the yang, the yang, the yang, whatever you want to call it. So what you're doing is you either want to be locked in at accomplishing things, or what you want to be doing is relaxing. What you don't want to do is what most of us do, where we're kind of just burnt out and demoralized, and then you're just kind of sitting there, and you're in this weird like dopamine spike state where you're just like, you know, you're doing this. You should all have that screen time app to show yourself what you're doing. And you go down some weird like rabbit hole on the internet. You're like, what about this thing? Oh, cool, socks. Oh, cool, a raccoon. Oh, it's a puppy. Oh, it's a mountain. Oh, it's Owen again. Hi. Okay, you know, right? You're just doing that. And so you want to break out of that loop because that's not recharging you, right? And look, we're all going to do that sometimes. It's not about like shaming and moralizing or things like that. Like, it's funny because I talk about living life at a higher level or getting out of the sixth system. And, you know, like I'll bring my girlfriend on, you know, on YouTube, you know, in her underwear. And then guys, you'll see in the comments like, why are you bringing your girlfriend on her underwear? Because it's fun. Okay, because it's entertaining. Like, how is that not entertaining? If you're not entertained by that, you got to stick up your butt. Like, just take the stick out of your butt, enjoy the show, and shut up. Just honestly, you gotta learn how to have fun. So it's not as though a little bit of like aimless surfing is bad. You know, I don't ever smoke weed, but if you wanna go smoke weed sometimes, it's not gonna kill you. You wanna go eat a cake, it's not gonna freaking kill you. You know, you wanna go derp or you wanna trash talk somebody of your friends because you just feel like it's not gonna freaking kill you. It's not about becoming some weird moral panic. Like, it always seems like anything in religion or spiritual growth or people that are trying to elevate, they actually push everybody away from God by becoming these super moralistic moral panickers, like these kind of pearl clutching moral panickers, like, oh, was a girl in her underwear? Oh my God, oh, how could you? It's bad. It's wrong. Shut up, okay? You are pushing people away from God. You're pushing people away from wanting to be good people. You're some weird moralizer. It's okay to have a little bit of fun. It's what dominates you. Are you doing that all the time, like all day, just sitting there, you know, just wanking it as like some girl in a bikini and then just like smoking blunts down and looking at your phone? Or is it you just do that little bit here or there once in a while and it's not running you, you're not being run by it? The question is, are you attached to your will, attached to your discernment, attached to your flow? Are you expanding? If those things don't get in the way of that, it's okay, but the question is, are you rationalizing? And as long as you're not, you're good to go. You don't need to be this like perfectionist, because what does that perfection always devolve into? Like Salem witch trials. You know, it's like there's a lot of collectivists that are doing that lately, like these weird purity tests and circular firing squads, and you know, the left wing will start doing it, then later the right wing will start doing it. Like, the right's been a little bit more open lately, but later it's probably going to go back to the right, and then the left will be more open, and it kind of goes back and forth. So it's not about letting yourself go to crap, but it's also not about moralizing either. I see a little bit of smoke coming out of your mouth back there. Are you vaping? Get him! Okay, so he's like, don't mind if I do, right? I'm not teasing, I do. Okay, don't get him. So, okay, so yeah, it's, you know, you eat one carrot, it's not going to make you healthy. You mess up once, it's not going to ruin your life. But you got to be in control of it and ask yourself, is this taking over my brain? Is this getting me out of my will, getting me out of my flow, getting me out of my discernment, taking away my expansion? Just ask that. And then when you want to take time off, do so in a way where you can recharge, okay? So this is this idea of endless motivation, this idea that if you're in that correct flywheel effect, you can actually get it to where you've got a ton of energy, you're doing things that you love, and that's what it really means to live life on the edge, in my view. Because, okay, here's a major thing that I also want to jump into. I almost make like a whole other segment on this, but I'm going to just jump in it right here. It expands on this. What you'll begin to realize over time, especially as you age, that it's actually very, it's easy but hard at the same time. Like, it's actually easy if you just focus on it, but it's hard if you don't. It's actually kind of hard unless you focus on it to get to the point where you can actually have a clear day to just relax. It's hard to get to a clear day where you can take time off work and go on a trip. It's hard to get a clear day to go study something. So a simple example would be like this, okay? Say I run a business, which I do. One of the best things that could help me is if I study, say, sales experts like Dan Kennedy or John Carlton or other, you know, incredible, you know, Seth Godin people in sales. But to do that, I'm running this big company. It's not a mega company, but, you know, big for like a coaching company for sure. I'm running this company, and I would have to get off like a couple weeks to really go through those books, wouldn't I? Right? I have to get clear time away from what it is that I'm doing to actually go invest in myself a little bit and not just be treading water, but to invest in that. For me to get it to where, you know, I traveled for 270 days for 2 years in a row, do you understand how much strategizing that took? Like, trust me, you know, Peter's back there. Go ask Peter. Like, he helped me to do this. all the different things that we had to do strategically so that I could be away from the company. I mean, I'm still in the company, but like having those clear days, right? Something that's coming up that you're going to see in the coming year, which is very beautiful. And I really hope that you appreciate as much as I did creating it. Hope you appreciate watching as much as I did to build it. I actually spent 2 years to redo my whole content, and I've got about 100 hours of new content coming out. And what I did was I did this tour, and can you imagine how hard it is to get off 270 days a year? Like, not off, you know what I'm saying, right? But like, away from the core grind of LA. And do you get how hard that is? Do you get how much mastery you have to have with managing things to be able to do that? I mean, I pushed myself to levels that I never thought possible. And what I did was for 2 years, I sat there and I would go into nature and I would sit out there, in Wyoming or Montana or Utah or Maine or wherever, like beautiful environment. Got an Airbnb cabin, fireplaces going, friends and kids are there, and I'm spending the whole evening just writing up content. I'm writing it out. I'm creating content kind of from scratch, but building on what I've always known. And I'm sitting there, and then I go into nature. We go to the best shooting locations, and I give my very best delivery. And, I cry in most of the videos. That's how passionate I'm about it. It's like super intense, peer through the veil, right? Like there's the veil of the real and then into the unseen. And being able to peer through that and to pull that person watching it right through the veil into something more, and to captivate the imagination and to give everything that you have to that video. And it took me 2 years to build this. And that'll only be when it's done. I'm on video 46. I'm going to reshoot about 3 of the earlier ones to get them up a little bit more. And I'm on video 46. I've got 52 planned. In this day and age in social media, 52 videos is nothing. Go to any social media expert and say, should you spend 2 years working on 52 videos? They're going to say, you're going to be out of work. You're going to be out of business, right? Your life is over if you spend 2 years to create 52 videos, spend a couple $1 million to shoot them, and then we'll probably spend 8-9 months to edit them. I got this ACL injury. It's probably God's will for me to stop traveling and go edit these videos, and that's going to be 8 or 9 months to edit. So looking at a 3-year project, right? Do you see how hard it is just to get 3 years away from the day-to-day release grind and, hitting the algorithm and hitting the SEO and keeping your face out there and always posting to put out true quality? But when I'm dead and gone, when my children are seeing me dead and gone, God forbid if they were to die before me, but I hope that they do not. And, the people of the future are seeing me when I'm long dead. Like, do you realize that, like, this room that you're in right now, the majority of people watching this speech are seeing it when I'm dead? Do you realize that? Say hello to everybody from after we're all dead. Say hi to everybody after we're all dead. Say, hey, we're all dead. Say, we're all dead. We're all dead. We're all dead. Hello from the other side. Hello from the other side. Good luck. You're screwed. We blew it. Sorry about your freedoms. Yeah, so whoops. Just go, whoops. Freedoms. Long fought for freedoms. Lost it for TikTok. Whoops. Okay, got to take the path of least resistance. So basically, so realize that, right? But to even set aside the time to sit here together, for all of you to be here off of whatever it is that you'd be doing, to be here together just this evening, for me to be here, to have a clear evening, to create, to share, to build energy, to focus on this, that's where the value is. Taking that time to truly recharge, that's where the value is. Taking the time to spend really time with your family, your children, to really engage them, that's where the value is. That is what is really living life. So what I'd say is build your life in a way that you're not constantly distracted, constantly in coping, constantly treading water. You've got to make a choice to say, you know what? I'm in this water treading pattern. I've got to rearrange my life to get ahead. Let me tell you a little bit about how I did. I've talked about this before. I'll say it again here. I actually did these trips realizing, now here's what's so special about the trips that I did. When I did the trips, I literally was coming off of first having to take down all my videos. Then rebuild the company in self-help and do that. I worked around the clock for 2 years, got fat, got stressed, got bald, got angry. People are like, you look kind of more mad now. I'm like, get in my life for one day and see what you look like. Okay? So, worked around the clock for 2 years. And literally, I'm sitting there in Miami, having finally stabilized an 8-figure business and not had to fire anybody, despite taking down all of our organic lead generation and rebuilt this thing. I learned more about business in that 2 years than I ever thought I would in my life. Guys, I had to be at a point where I had so little time off that I had to train myself to look at the sky for 40 seconds as a time off. Like, I'd be like, ah, and then I'd be like, break time, and I'm like, sky. I'm like 40 seconds over, ah, right? And like I got to that point. Cortisol rushing through my systems for years as bills are coming at me, as wanting to save all those jobs, all that kind of stuff. So I did that for a couple years. Finally rebuilt it. People didn't even know that we were screwed because I was able to keep that strong face. Then I do all that, and right as I'm sitting there in Miami, I'm sitting there during model season in Miami at the Standard Hotel, one of my favorite hotels in Miami, San Luis Spa. And I'm like, how come there's nobody here? And I go to the front, and this thing that I've been hearing about from my friends that are, in the upper levels have been warning me about this is coming for quite a while now. Turns out that there's this thing coming, and they're going to lock everybody down, and everybody's dumb, and we're about to go on lockdown. And I run a company that is called Social Dynamics that is about bars and clubs and seminar rooms. And I realized, wow, if I'd known this was going to happen, I would have just taken the last 2 years off because I'm screwed. And I go back to actually the Russian Banya, and I sit there with my face in my palm for 4 days, totally depressed, basically realizing I'm going to be bankrupted, destroyed, out in the streets, all staff fired. And I said to myself, you know what, wait a minute. Because people look at me, they're like, but that could happen to you? Yes, I run a company about social skills using bars, clubs, and seminar rooms. Of course. So anyway, people always just think that there's some other level of person that doesn't have the normal human problems when you cross a certain point. That is the dumbest thinking in the world. Everybody has problems. So what happened was, I sit down and I say, I'm going to just start by creating this new Zoom mentoring program, and I'm going to go do lives every day, and we're going to have a huge audience on lives because everyone's locked down, and I'm just going to pump this thing called Our Best Program, we did that too. High status communication, and I'm just going to tell everybody to go do the free phone call, and then we're going to run this online thing. And I built that out under a state of terror as we're sinking, and I actually rebuilt that, and we restabilized the company. And then what I said was, you know what? Here's what I realized. I'm like, you know what? Every year of my life, I say I'm going to go out into nature. Every year of my life, I say that I'm going to go travel the whole country. Every year of my life, I say I'm going to do these driving trips. Every year of my life, I say I'm going to spend more time with my kids. And I always have an excuse not to do it. You know what I learned from that lockdown thing? Maybe it's never going to come. And so actually, in the most difficult and precarious business position that I've ever been in, I started taking off 270 days a year. Okay, so if I could do that, running a company about social skills, bars, clubs, seminar rooms, shut down, you can do it too, okay? You have no excuse. But what I did was I went deep, deep, deep into our systems and looked at every single thing that I could to figure out how to do this. And the way that I did it, here's the best way that I did it, I threw my hat over the fence. I said, I'm gonna go take 2 weeks off, I'm gonna go shoot new videos, and then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna come back to a total destructive, horrible situation, probably about, maybe 80, 90K in payroll deficits, and then I'm gonna have to figure out on the spot and trust myself to come up with 80, 90K extra to meet my SaaS payroll. Yeah, so I did that. So I come back, totally destroyed, best trip ever, went to Arches National Park, Bryce Canyon, Zion, was out there, finally did what I said I was gonna do, come back, business in shambles. And then what happened was, I know one thing about human beings. We are adaptive. We are the species that conquered the earth. We literally were living in trees and comfort. A lot of those food sources dried up. We made it all the way through with lions and tigers and predators and insects and famine and volcano and ice storms and everything. And we conquered that. That's us. We're not victims. And so I said, I'm just going to figure it out. The mind will adapt to whatever stress you put on it. And I came back and I found new ways to double and triple our typical weekly revenue that I never would have done. Never if I'd had a choice, but I had to dig deeper. So it trains the mind to lock in, to focus, to dig deep. That, any of you guys that ever want to do a program with me, how am I going to figure out how to do that? Sign up. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to freaking figure it out, or you're never going to do it. That's my prediction. But honestly, this is something that you should be applying in every area of life, and it's this. Put yourself in the position to take a bit of a risk and just see what happens. Just see what happens. Don't destroy yourself. Use common sense. Gauge it to where you're at, but use some freaking common sense and figure it out. And that's what I did. And what I learned how to do was I said to myself, I'm not just going to optimize for revenue. I'm not just going to optimize for art. I'm not just going to optimize for legacy. I'm going to optimize so that I can actually do some things that I want to do. I'm going to start respecting myself after a whole life of living for everybody but myself, always working around the clock, putting out 4-hour free content videos, productions that cost, our editing bills into 7 figures to get out all these free videos. We don't even have a mega huge viral following. It's a core fan following, not pandering to the mainstream, literally just putting out core videos for people, putting out content that we probably shouldn't have, that have caused us nightmares, but doing that because it's real, because it's our truth, because I want you to see it, because I know that nobody else will, so doing that. And so, I would do public speaking. Most of my events, I'd run until 8, 9 in the morning to become a more energetic speaker and to show you something inspiring with energy. All this stuff that I'm doing, I'll do something for myself for once. And I went out and I did this best thing I ever did in my life because I got out of the weird matrix that I was in. And here's what I ultimately realized. Honestly, your life's going to pass you by. And if you don't find a way to optimize for the life that you want to live, and don't make it acceptable to just keep putting in more and more hours. Don't make that acceptable. If you had a gun at your head and you said, gun at your head, you've got to figure out a way to balance having the life that you really want to live, balance doing the things that you want to do, for you guys that just signed up for a program, balance taking a program of me, whatever that will be. If you had a gun at your head, you'd find a way. And that's honestly what I did. So I put a gun in my head. And that gun in my head, thank God, broke me out of the sick system of just only wanting to win. Like I think I'm some Trump wannabe or something, just winning and winning and winning. And I said to myself, no, I'm going to break out of that. And it's not about winning. It's not just about winning. Winning is a part of it. You're going to win big. But it's not just, and I'm here to teach you that, but it's not just about winning. It's about realizing what is the correct win. And if your win is to become like Sanjay Gupta, where you're so a part of the establishment that your expression is stifled, your discernment is stifled, your access to flow is stifled. You can see the difference with him and Joe Rogan in the interview. If you're becoming that, then all that you're doing is becoming a general in the sick system. These people that you see that run billion-dollar companies that look like they're so cool are generals in the sick system. They can't speak freely. They can't give their real opinion. Many of them I have to coach. It's so sad. You think that they're winning? Oh, you became a billionaire? No, you are more beholden to that sick system than a regular person because you have a spotlight on you. You're not actually able to be yourself. You're not actually able to speak your truth. You're stuck in this establishment where you're having to pander to that. And there's nothing worth the price of your soul. Nothing. And you give your soul up for that sick system. You sell yourself out. You pander for that. You take the fruit that's given to you. You bite the frickin' apple and you go right to hell. That's what that life is. And that's why you see a lot of those people. You've probably seen people who I've been publicly known to coach that are dead now that were making hundreds of millions or billionaires. You might know about some of them. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of you know who they are. And I've watched as many of these wealthy clients that I have, that I work with one-on-one, die. I've watched them die. And it's the saddest thing you've ever seen. And what you realize is a lot of that success that you get, you're just an even greater slave. So yes, go win, but also mix that up with taking in God's creation, letting that go within you. Allow it to infuse into your spirit, to energize you, to connect to it, to connect to the land, the way that the Native Americans would talk about. Connect to the land, connect to the air, connect to what's around you. Don't waste time looking at garbage. Look at the things that are classic. Look at the things that are beautiful. Look at things that are amazing. Connect to presence and allow that present energy to infuse your soul. Act from that as a foundation and get it to where you connect with that very, very deeply, to where you're laughing more, you're expressing more, you're sharing more, you're doing things that you're passionate about. And now what happens is that you're clearing time away so that you can go do that creative work, clearing time away so that you can go do that amazing trip, clearing time away to go read that incredible book. Maybe you want to read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, but look at, and literally, if you were to cut the time that you waste on crap, you could really do that. So start asking yourself that. What are you really living for? Is there a firm anchor to reality that you have, to you imposing your will, or are you being blown around like a leaf in the wind? I'm not going to go very deep on this, but when you study esoteric spirituality at the deepest levels, so much of it discusses these things and what it means to really have a will. If you read books like the Kabbalion, what it means to be able to impregnate yourself with your own will versus what it means to take the imprinting of somebody else and to become their slave. And we could talk for hours and hours and hours about what real slavery is, beyond just obvious and discussing horrific versions of slavery, but ways that people can actually get you to be working not towards your own agenda, not on your own presence. It's very, very sad. And what it means to have that endless motivation is going beyond that system so that you're energized by what it is that you're doing and you're living at your fullest potential. I hope that you enjoyed this bit. Did you guys get some good value out of this bit that we just talked about here? Thank you. Thank you, guys.